All right. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to a special episode of Jawing and Balling. It has been quite a while since we've been able to dust off this show. And if you've watched the show before, you'll recognize me having been on here. But I actually have two new gentlemen on here instead of my two regulars in Joe McDonald and Aman Patel. I have Yol, the big dog. You've probably seen him quite a lot throughout the NFL season and whatnot. Yol, appreciate you being on, good sir.
Always good to be with you, Tony, man. Always good to be chopping it up with you guys. And yeah, so much to cover, man. Let's get into it for sure.
Awesome. And of course, we actually have a new face to the ASAP network. I wanted to bring him in with hopefully a couple of, we'll say, pros for ASAP anyway. I don't know if anybody else consider us pros. I consider us pros, though. I got Rob, also a fellow sports fanatic. Rob, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
Thank you, sir. I am excited to be here with you guys. I don't get to talk too many sports with too many people too often, so it's good to get on here and actually really cut into some stuff and get in over some good topics. So I'm pretty excited to have you guys have me. I come from Michigan, loyal Broncos fan, MSU fan. I love all sports, NFL all the way down to golf, everything. So I'm just excited to be here, ready to cook it up with you guys and get going.
Okay. I gotta ask, did you have Rom winning the Masters? Because I'm not gonna lie, when I was first watching it, this is my first year getting in golf, and I'm looking at Kepka, and he had like a 2-shot lead. I'm like, okay, like that he could lose that. Like that's pretty easy to lose, but then Rom ends up coming back and taking the win.
Yeah, I did not see that coming from behind. That was exciting all the way down to the very last hole. I Not a lot of people watch the Masters, and I'll dabble with it every so often. I miss Ernie Els. Ernie Els is who I used to really like watching back in the day. God, he was so fun. And yeah, I didn't see him coming back like that though.
Yeah,
And I
for
think
the way Kepka blew that lead, I couldn't believe. I mean, he had a solid lead going into Sunday, and for him to blow a lead,
Yeah.
player of his caliber, getting the kind of money he's getting, I was like, I didn't watch them. I didn't watch it, but then I looked at my phone. I'm like, what? He lost? Couldn't believe that Kepka blew that lead.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say too, they were kind of surprised the amount of people that actually showed up and even tuned into the Masters this year. I think this was probably one of their most popular years, which kind of blows my mind. I'm like wow, people I guess we're just that interested in golf. I grew up never being interested in golf. I'm like I could probably fall asleep watching this. Like it is cool. It's pretty. It's one of those sports. It's one of those things. I think it would be nicer if I was either doing it or if I was actually there live watching it with like a beer. It seems very just like tranquil, very peaceful. And
Yeah.
it seems like you would have a better time if you were just there in person rather than watching it on TV. But that's just my perception of it.
I think it's a personality based sport. You kind of find your personalities that you like and kind of rock with them for a little bit. And
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's really interested in 1 through 18, but
Right. Right. But hey, you never know though. I mean, people are into a
yeah.
lot of stuff. But let's get into the hot topic though. That is obviously we're currently still in basketball season. We just entered the postseason of the NBA, and we've already kind of seen some wild games, wild series so far. Tonight, actually currently going on, we have the Lakers taking on the Grizzlies without Ja Morant. It's game 2. The Lakers currently have a lead over the Grizzlies at the moment. Gentlemen, what's your take so far out of the Grizzlies? They kept it close within a point at that fourth quarter of game 1, and then everything just went away as soon as Ja Morant got hurt. The Lakers just took advantage, and they ended up winning by, I believe it was 15, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they jumped out. They jumped out pretty far on Memphis. It's amazing. This Memphis team has played so much with Ja and so much without Ja, and it's almost like a tale of two cities with this ball club. And for them once again, Ja to be hurt in the playoffs, it's almost like he's got like that Chris Paul disease where you get hurt in the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like this team has a great regular season. Come playoff time, they need their leader. Their leader gets hurt. I mean, the way he plays, if you look at the way he plays, he almost plays in a reckless way where he's bound to get hurt. He plays so wild and so aggressively, but the NBA is definitely salivating because they're like, ooh, we could have the Lakers in here for a while. And that's what the NBA truly wants. They want the Lakers. They want LeBron and AD. They want that storyline. So this series, going into it, I was like, when the Lakers got the 7, I was like, ooh, this could be a good matchup. good, long series. If Memphis obviously has to win tonight in order to make this because if the Lakers go home 2-0 on this ball club, they could easily sleep very easily with the attitude of going into Los Angeles down 2-0. So I'm looking forward to a long series, hopefully, and for all the LeBron haters out there, you can hate all you want, but he's playing some of his best basketball right now. If you really look at the way he's playing, and he's getting help off the bench. He's getting Rudy. I've never pronounced his last name.
Rui Hachimura.
Hachimura, yeah, thank you. He had a great game. Austin Reeves had a great game. So it's like he's getting that help and he needs. So it should be a great series at this point. I'd like to see Ja get back, but who knows what's going to happen with him. He's had such an up and down year with all his off the court stuff. We never know where his head's at.
Yeah. Rob, like Yoel said, this has been a tale of two Lakers teams, because if you remember, they started out 2-10. They still had Russell Westbrook. They make the trade finally in season. They dump Russell Westbrook off, and now it's like we've seen the complete and total flip change now for the Lakers. Is this what you expected? Because to me, honestly, the biggest thing that has surprised me is Anthony Davis, for the most part, has been healthier than what he has been in the past few seasons. It seemed like every time you turn around, it's like the wind blew, Anthony Davis was out for like 6 weeks because the wind hurt like that. And it's no offense to Anthony Davis, but it's like he's such a talented ball player. The talent is there. He was considered one of the best basketball players, even made the NBA's top 75, but he's almost never on the court. Do you think the Lakers now, because they've been able to get into a rhythm, they've gotten rid of Westbrook as a distraction and as a potential hindrance to the team, do you think this is a team that can be built to make a pretty deep run in the West?
Granted, like you said, if Anthony Davis is the X factor of this team, I mean, they can do good without him, but they need him in the paint. They need him scoring those mid-range buckets that he scores. They need his energy, his leadership. I mean, he averages one injury scare a game, and I thought we lost him first game. I say we because I happen to be a Lakers fan myself. I've been rooting for these guys. I love Russell Westbrook. I love him, and as a player, as a person, he's an amazing, beautiful spirit. But he wasn't the right fit for the Lakers team and how they operated. So I am glad that we got rid of him. All the best to him with the Clippers. I see what they're doing over there. I mean, he's playing out of his mind over there with the right coaching. He's really flourished with those guys, I think. But as far as the Lakers, I think they do make a deep run, granted Anthony Davis's health, because Austin Reeves has got something to prove right now. I don't know if he wants that money, if he just wants the recognition, or if he legitimately wants a ring, but he is playing out of his mind. And our role players are coming off the bench and really doing nice work. Like you said, Rui Hachimura, he had his best game, 38 points. The game one. I mean, it's fantastic what they're doing out there. Ever since that trade deadline, they really, I think they make a push. I think America would love to see the Lakers Celtics back in that same environment. That would be crazy, because I can see the Celtics coming out of the East. I don't really see too much. They're sweeping the Hawks. I mean, Sixers if they can stay healthy, but that's for another topic. But yeah, as far as the Lakers, I think they can do it. Ja Morant really being the head of the snake, being the engine, being the heart that he is, does damage them. But like he was mentioning earlier, they played so much without him that they can still hoop with the best of them. All they need is a bad night from a couple Lakers, and they're back in the series. So
yeah,
as far as that goes, I think they can get there.
Okay. Now we'll move over to the East. So the Heat also face the Bucks tonight. Miami actually leads the series, 1-0 right now. Ray, sorry. I'll start with you. Is this something that's kind of surprising? Because Miami has seemed to be that team for the last 3 or 4 seasons. They're pesky. Like, they're right there in the fray. They are fighting. They are almost always either in the Eastern Conference Championship, or if not, real close, to the finals. Do you think this is finally the year they could potentially get over the hump and, you know, beat the Bucks? Or Rob, sorry, I don't know why I said Ray. I'm sorry, Rob.
As far as beating the Bucks, I mean, was it Giannis? Giannis is questionable going into this game, isn't he?
He's actually out. ESPN's reporting, 29 minutes ago, he's actually out. So Giannis is out.
Okay. Yeah, I knew at the beginning of the day it was questionable. So that's, I mean, they're already up 1-0. If they sneak in a 2-0 and Giannis misses game 3, you know, but the Heat are also missing Tyler Hero. That's not. I mean, he's at least in your top 3 players. You know, maybe top 2. Well, when Bam's at his best, he's top 2, I'd say, because I mean, you can't do nothing without your center down there.
Yeah.
So, I like if they can win tonight, and then where are they going to be at home tonight, or are they going to go back home to get?
It's in Milwaukee currently.
Okay, so if they can win tonight and then go back home and sneak a game 3, then they might be able to close it out in a game 6.
Yeah, I could see that.
That would be crazy. That would be crazy. I mean, if Miami goes home up 2-0, if they win tonight, if they go home 2-0, think about that. You know, without Tyler Hero, Giannis being hurt. You know, I think and it's one of my sound man in my band is a huge Heat fan. And we talked about this the other day. I think Miami secretly wanted the matchup against Milwaukee. They seem to match up better against Milwaukee than they do against Boston. For the last couple of years, they've matched up better in the playoffs against Milwaukee than they have against Boston and the other ball clubs. So to get this matchup, to get Giannis out of the lineup, you know, obviously he got hurt. It happens, you know, but to not have Giannis in this lineup, I mean, Drew Holiday can kind of take over, Middleton can kind of take over, but, you know, not having that big man in the middle, that sheer power in the middle is definitely who Milwaukee lies on. And Brook Lopez can't play that position away. You know, he's not the guy in the middle.
He's a glacier compared to
exactly. So it's very interesting turn of events with Giannis not being in tonight. You know, it's anybody's game. And it's kind of a late game. The game starts at 9:00 Eastern time. You know, which I was like, ooh, but obviously for television purposes they did that. So here on the East Coast, you know, I'll have to stay up a little late to watch that game tonight. But yeah, this series is now anybody's series with Giannis out now and his status obviously uncertain for game 3. You know, the series has obviously changed and very hard to call in my opinion.
Yeah. So we'll move on to back to the West. We'll move on to the Denver Nuggets hosting the Timberwolves. So a lot of big names out for this one with Minnesota Timberwolves. As of right now, at least according to ESPN.com, Jalen Noel and Rudy Gobert both doubtful for the Timberwolves, and Nikola Joker is doubtful for the Nuggets. So is this one that, you know, with those names out, do you think this is kind of a wash for both teams? It's one of those, it's like, well, somebody will win. They have to win, but it's not going to be one of those. It's really kind of a deciding factor win. You know what I mean?
It's interesting. It's an interesting question because, you know, Minnesota's been kind of an enigma all season long. You know, Rudy Gobert, obviously one of the better defensive players in the league. Karl-Anthony Towns has been up and down the whole season. If you really look at his stats, he's had good games, he's had bad games. When he's on, and no one can stop him. But which Karl-Anthony Towns are you going to get tonight? Obviously, with Jokic out of the lineup, you know, there are other role players, Murray, and I can't remember the other guy, but they definitely, him. They definitely, you know, the ball will be obviously moving around different. It won't be dumping the Jokic back in or Jokic from the outside. So another series taking a turn due to injury, you know, late season injuries. It's amazing how these guys, you know, they take games off during the year, the whole, you know, resting during the year, the whole load management thing. And now come playoff time and these guys all of a sudden are hurt. It's like, well, then why did you take off the whole season to just be hurt in the playoffs? Like, you know, I don't see that gets into the whole load management question, which is a podcast in itself, you know,
right? So, say the Kawhi Leonard effect, honestly, because
exactly, the Kawhi Leonard effect.
because you kind of always heard it, or at least I always did before. It's like, well, we're doing a little bit of load management. Like, they don't really need to kind of play these last few games. Like, no big deal. But it was like Kawhi kind of perfected it. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna play a couple games. I'm gonna sit out for like 4 weeks. Yeah, I'm gonna play a couple games here, sit out for like 6 more weeks. Like, I just want us to be ready for the playoffs. It's like, okay, wait a minute, wait a minute. You've had all this time to be healthy. You haven't really done much of anything, and now you're not showing up, and you're like, oh well, I'm still hurt. Wait a minute. Like, just either say you're hurt or not. Like, to me, there's no real, unclear, uncut definition. Like, either you are or you aren't. But that's just me. Rob, what about you? Do you think maybe it's a little bit more interesting or closer than what we're thinking, or do you kind of agree that it might just be a little bit of a crapshoot with really the big names? But like Yoel said, it depends on what can Karl Anthony Towns do.
The Karl Anthony Towns, yes, but also I think a lot of it falls on Ant-Man's shoulders. Like, it's time. You've been in the league a couple of years now. You've shown how dominant you are. I think it's time you take the wheel and really take over this team. I mean, because Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, who knows if he's going to be there next. I mean, maybe not next year, but maybe the year after. I don't know how long he's going to be there, because I don't know. There's been turmoil in the past, and he hasn't really delivered for them either. And as far as the Nuggets go, I mean, Aaron Gordon he's a great player, but he feeds off of Joker's assist a lot. Like, those two are like buddy when it comes down to playing with each other. So it's tough to see him blow up with Joker on the bench. I mean, you're gonna need those 50 pieces that Jamal Murray can really put together, because there's not a whole lot of big name scorers that they can really go to or really rely on. I mean, their bench is okay. I don't even really know too much about their bench, but I know it's not that deep, I don't think.
Yeah.
So Murray's got to step up.
The whole Western Conference, that's been the talk all year. How the Western Conference has been such a lack of a better term, crapshoot. And even though Denver was the definitive number 1 seed, no one was picking, Denver's going to run away with this division. Everyone's saying, Phoenix, Golden State, even the Lakers have a shot. Denver's been called, I hate to use the word soft, but they've been called soft all year. And for them not to have Jokic in a key game 2 where they can have a definitive 2-0 lead going into Minnesota, because they're going to be crazy in Minnesota. I mean, when that crowd gets going over there, you saw in the 8-10, the 8th seed playing game, that crowd was into it. I mean, they were excited. They were just up, and the noise factor in Minnesota, the way that arena's built. I saw the clear shots of the arena. They were like, wow, it got loud in there. So Denver needs to take advantage of this, But as you said, Rob, Anthony Edwards needs to step up. He didn't step up in either of the playing games. He didn't really step up in game 1. He's got to take the ball tonight and be like, all right, this is my game. If Jokic is in the lineup, I don't have Gobert. He needs to step up. Him and Karl Anthony Towns need to play that 2-man game a la Stockton Malone. Yeah, I went old school Stockton Malone, and really just take it to Denver. Take it if they have an advantage. Take advantage of the game tonight. If that's the case, take advantage of it.
Yeah. So real quick, I just looked up their roster. They actually have Reggie Jackson and KCP. So, I mean, and Michael Porter Jr. So they do have some role players that could really bring some life to that team, hopefully, in the wake of his absence. But
yeah,
best of luck to the Nuggets.
I say for me, it was one of those, because I'm not a massive NBA fan, but I always noticed that whenever there was the standings, it seemed like the Nuggets and the Jazz were always like number 1, number 2 seed. Like regular season, they were always the teams that were probably the best, one of the best teams to beat, and then they would always just fall flat every single time in the playoffs. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they just weren't ready. Now again, this is a new Nuggets team, especially with the trades and the moves that they did, but it'll just, to me, it'll be interesting if the Nuggets can kind of, to me, break their curse of being one of the best basketball teams in the regular season and then falling short in the postseason.
Kobe cursed that team by beating my Melo back in the day. ever since then, they haven't been the same.
I believe it. Well,
the Kobe curse.
Yeah.
Right. So We'll move on from the NBA playoffs, though, because those are just for the games for tonight. We still have a few more games for tomorrow, the rest of the week. But I wanted to touch on something while it's still fresh. Obviously, a lot of college football programs did their spring games this past weekend. Ohio State probably surprised everybody. They had 75,000 people in attendance for their spring game this past weekend. Right? It's crazy the amount of people that were in Columbus to watch the Buckeyes play. Now, of course, unless you're a diehard college football fan or unless you're a diehard fan of these teams, probably not watching it a whole lot. It's one of those, it's almost like a college preseason game where honestly you're just watching your first string beat up the first string and your second string beat up the second string. The most interesting story to probably come out of this, though, is, of course, we got to see the debut of Archie Manning in a Texas Longhorns uniform in the spring game, and he was the third string quarterback, and he did not have a great performance. Quinn Ewers looked like the veteran. Malik Murphy looked like the veteran. Archie, he fresh out of high school, actually graduated, I believe, 6 months early to be able to go to Texas, to be able to be a part of the spring training for the spring games and be a part of the program already and whatnot. Rob, since you are a Broncos fan and you got to follow Peyton Manning for the second half of his career, I actually followed Peyton for the first half of his career, living in and being from Indianapolis. What was your thought as far as, really what I'd probably say a lot of people are calling Archie's underwhelming debut? I'm
surprised he played as bad as he did, to be honest. I mean, because I've seen highlights of him before, and he's amazing with the ball. And you would think too, it's almost like a LeBron James's kid, with that type of influence, you figure push you above that echelon. Mm-hmm. But that blowout loss didn't look too good. I think what was it, 38-6, 38-7?
Yeah, I didn't get to see the score. I knew it wasn't great, but I didn't actually see what the orange versus white score was.
I want to say they ended up benching him towards the end. So, wow. How far out do we have till the season starts?
It'll start in September. Well, I think August, September. So there's still about 4 to 5 months.
Really prove him. Well, I mean, let's hope he can come out swinging, and because I'd like to see him. Like you said, being a Peyton Manning fan, he's a genius with the ball, just a wizard. Mm-hmm. That 55 touchdown yard year, mm-hmm. that was one of the greatest offensive units that's ever played the game, in my mm-hmm. opinion. I mean, close to it.
Yeah.
So I have high hopes for Arch. I'd really like to see him do well. I'd really like to see him pull back and bounce back from this. Mm-hmm. So just wishing him the best, hoping he can, really do it.
Yeah. Now, y'all, on the other hand, you are a fan of the team that Peyton's little brother played for in Eli. Yes. The conqueror of Tom Brady, having beat him twice in the Super Bowl, only man to be able to make that accolade at all. What's your thoughts on Archie Manning kind of coming out of the gate? We'll call it slow initially, because I mean this is the first time we've truly gotten to see him play. And I mean, let's be honest, he played with basically the rest of the roster. He wasn't playing with first string guys, he wasn't playing with second string guys. He's playing with third string talent.
Right. Well, let's look at a couple of factors. Obviously the Manning name carries a very high level of cachet with it. You're a Manning, you're supposed to be great at everything you do on a football field. It's like the pressure that's on LeBron's son, Bronny. When Bronny comes out, everyone's going to expect the same thing from him. Yep. I've been looking on Twitter as we've been talking, and the kid's 17 years old. 17. The pace of the game from high school to college is it's that next level. The same way you and I have talked a lot about the speed from college to the pros. So you have a 17-year-old kid with all the pressure of being a Manning, playing at one of the richest football tradition schools in the country. Texas, is what Texas is: church, football, and barbecue. I mean, that's pretty much what Texas breeds. Mm-hmm. The fact that he didn't perform well, I'm a little surprised, but I'm not surprised because he's 17, and some of these players he's playing against are 20, 21-year-old, kids. They're grown men compared to what Arch will be.
Mm-hmm.
But the big question to me was the expectation of him going there, was he going there expecting to be the starter? Does he sit the bench, or does he maybe redshirt and then go into the transfer portal? Because, he's like, look, I'm Arch Manning. My family name needs to have me in a starting position somewhere. So does he transfer? Does he stick it out? Texas, but here's another thing. Texas, the last couple seasons, have a lot of starting quarterbacks get injured early. I remember in the Alabama game this past season, Texas' starter got injured. The second stringer came in. I don't remember their names.
Yeah,
but
Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card.
Right. Yeah, I remember you and I talked about that game. So he might get some playing time due to the injury. Right now he's like third on the depth chart, I think.
Yep.
But you never know what'll come up between spring practice and finally, when the season starts. But it'll be interesting to see. This transfer portal has changed college football tremendously. If you look at a lot of the teams, the way players have transferred. I mean, Joe Burrow was at Ohio State, didn't get playing time, transferred. LSU, Heisman, Super Bowl runner-up. He's going to get a bag of money very soon. So you never know what's going to go on with it, but it's going to be a very interesting story to watch. I'm very curious to see what happens with him. If he stays at Texas, if he does transfer, what other schools? I don't remember what other schools recruited him. I know there was there was at least one or two SEC schools, if I recall.
Alabama was a big one. Ole Miss was a big one because of Eli having been there. I think Tennessee threw their hat in the ring, but I can't.
Yeah,
I can't
that's
be sure
where Peyton went to Tennessee, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be very interesting to watch. They'll be interesting to watch. I think another interesting college football story is to watch is what goes on with USC this summer with Caleb Williams coming off a Heisman Trophy. Their coach having a second season over there, strongly recruiting, getting guys from the Midwest to come out west, even though they're going to be playing in the Big Ten next season. Another interesting college football story, and the fact that you said that 75,000 people went to see the Ohio State spring game is just,
that's crazy.
I mean, I've been to Columbus and there's not much to do there. I understand, but, but still, it's like, it's a spring game. But these blue blood college football programs, they live, eat, and breathe football, and I'm sure schools like that will probably get 75,000 people for a pie eating contest with their rosters. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I will.
I was just going to say, with money being involved now, do students get to see those ticket sales from those spring games, you think?
I would assume they probably do, because with name, image and likeness, they probably do. I think a lot of theirs now though is mainly sponsorships from like outside corporations and companies. Like I know there's one kid I think is sponsored by Reese's. There's a couple other ones that are sponsored. I can't remember them off the top of my head. But as far as Archie goes, it's one of those. I'm going to use a term from my least favorite quarterback ever. RELAX. Relax.
Come on, you didn't even go Aaron Rodgers on us, Tony. Come on.
Right, I know. I hate it, but it's like you said, he's 17. This is the first time he's playing with the true Texas team. And like you said as well, he has the Manning name on the back of his jersey. Like there's super high expectations. There's all of this, laid out in front of him. You have to remember, Quinn Ewers has been there for now 3 seasons. He was the starter last year. So he's has chemistry with a lot of these guys. Of course, he's going to be the first string guy that goes out there because he's the most familiar face. Malik Murphy, really big, just pure raw athlete. Again, been there a little bit longer than Archie has. So yeah, he's probably going to be your next best quarterback. Archie comes in and it's like, okay, do what you can with the rest. Yeah, he's probably gonna look bad. You look at the Mannings. When have the Mannings ever been known for having a big, powerful, zippy arm? Their thing is they dissect the game. They look at the coverages. They look at how to manage who they have. And Archie did that in high school, but you have to remember, while high school football is competitive, it's not nearly as intricate as college football. There's not nearly as much that you have to be prepared for. And you look at how much college and the NFL flip-flop with each other. Of you have some college programs running, NFL style offenses and defenses and vice versa. So this is really his first true, we'll call it professional experience with dealing with professional type of players at Texas. So for people to come out, already worried, saying that he's a bust, that they like calm down. Now, I will say, I do think it's a possibility, depending on what Quinn does. If Arch gets any playing time, he might redshirt and want to transfer out. But if I'm him, I wouldn't do that. Like, you're going to go into the SEC. You're already going to have to face a bunch of these people to start with anyway. You pick Texas for a reason. And I've noticed a lot of the Mannings try to pick kind of their own path in what they do. You look at Peyton went to Tennessee, Eli went to Ole Miss. If I remember correctly, I believe Arch went to Ole Miss, or he went to one of the same schools his son did, but I can't remember which one.
Yeah, the father Archie played at Ole Miss. Yeah,
at Ole Miss. So it's like they, for the most part, it seems like they kind of try to make their own legacy. Neither one tries to go to a team that one Manning has already played for. Like, I doubt we'll see Archie go to the Giants, the Colts, the Broncos, or the Saints. So to me, he's going to kind of carve out his own legacy. And like you said, he got touted to got touts and offers from Alabama with Nick Saban. He turned it down and he went to Texas for a reason. Why? We don't really know. But to me, if he sits back and learns, it would be so much better for him than being thrust into a starting position. And if he fails to meet expectations, then that negative energy, that negative clout, all of that is just going to constantly be around him.
Right. Now,
the other question I would kind of have, and maybe some people are maybe a little bit disappointed with this because of who his family is, how really much is Eli and Peyton kind of whispering in Archie's ear as far as, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what I would do. Because you have to think, at some point, while they can offer advice, and I'm sure they do, at what point do you say, hey, man, this is also your journey? Like, you have to kind of learn. We can't just always be there to help you. Like, you have to also grow and learn into this role. We're going to give you tips and tricks, but for the most part, this is on you.
Oh yeah. Well, if you look at some of the tape that they've shown, and I was interested. I was just looking at Twitter that they actually showed every play from Arch's spring game.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely a lot quicker in the pocket, a lot quicker than Eli and Peyton ever were. I mean, hell, I could probably run faster than Peyton,
right?
And that's not saying much, trust me. So he definitely has a little more mobility than Peyton and Eli. It is interesting, to see, you can be taught how to read a defense. Obviously, Peyton and Eli can say, look, you got to look for this read, look for that, look for your short guy, your long guy. What I don't really know how to read a defense. If I did, I would have been playing football. But they're going to teach him those things. But it's the bottom line is, as you said, it's his journey. He's got to execute that in the pocket, in the clutch, in front of 85,000 people, however, if Texas plays Jerry World, 100,000 people, whatever. So, it's one thing to play at a high school stadium and then to play at a college stadium, but yeah, he's going to be 18 in May. So, and, he's got a lot of growing to do, those of you who are jumping on him out there, relax. Give the kid a break in honesty, But go on Twitter, watch the highlights from the game. You can see every play. You can see how some plays he executed well, some plays he misread. It's quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I mean that to me, you'll have that with any and every quarterback that comes into a new system. You'll see stuff that they do really well and stuff that they don't. Like you said with to me, like Bronny is going to have those same type of expectations. And I feel so bad for some of these kids that their parents are these all-star, like world-renowned athletes, because then, okay, you're expected to meet those same expectations, if not exceed them.
Right.
It's like, you have to remember, like, these are once in a generational type of players. And you look at LeBron, you look at Peyton, you look at Eli. How long did it take for, the NFL, for the NBA to realize, oh, hey, this is what we need to learn how to do in order to be able to compete with this type of player and this type of person. So, Archie's going to have to go through that. So, yeah, to me, this, like, not saying you have to lower expectations, but just bring him down like 2 notches. Let him have let him have a season under his belt. Let him come back next year. He'll have a full, true like workout year. He'll probably come out bigger, stronger. Hopefully, like you said, faster, because Peyton runs like a grandma. Even again, don't get me wrong, I liked Peyton. I loved watching Peyton, but he ran like a grandma.
Right.
So let's watch it and kind of temper expectations, though. But
I want to just tag on something you said. It's hard, when you said, when you were going into the league and your parent played at a high level, and it's interesting to see, how these second and third generation players are coming into the league. These family trees. Everyone when Steph Curry came out, it came not very highly touted out of Davidson, a small school. He made that one big run in the NCAA tournament. I think they lost to Wisconsin in the Elite Eight that year, if I'm correct. And everyone's like, oh, he'll never shoot like his father. No, he shot much better than his father, because his father, Del Curry, was a hell of a 3-point shooter. You see some of these players in the league now that are juniors, their fathers, like Asante Samuel Jr. I mean, his father was a hell of a ball player, but juniors kind of living up to those. It's interesting to see the generations and how either they're better or they're equal or they just can't play as well. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on these families, and people are like, oh, he's his family, he's got to play well. Well, I mean, Cooper Manning played at college, but he didn't even get a sniff of the pros. He played at Mississippi. So the family name carries a lot of cachet, but the talent doesn't necessarily drip down from generation to generation, and people need to be a little less scrutinizing and let these kids be kids, if you ask me.
And plus, I mean, you think about it too. Like, if you're, if this is, this is Cooper Manning's son, like, if you're on the other side of the ball, if you're his opponent, oh, I'm bringing my best. I'm playing my absolute best because I want to be able to say I beat a Manning. Like,
right.
And that goes with that legacy, that goes with the, who these types of players are. It's like, no, you're playing the best. You are, from one of the best NFL football families out there. I'm going to bring my best to you in order to hopefully beat you in competition. So, but cool. Yeah, I'm hoping it gets better. I think it will. I hope he doesn't transfer. And if he transfers to Alabama, I quit. I hate Bama.
I actually want to ask you. Yeah, I actually want to ask you guys a question. Have either of you seen the movie Air, the Michael Jackson movie? I mean, not the Michael Jordan movie about the sneakers.
Yes.
Not yet.
All right. Yeah, I saw it. I thought it was excellent, and it's interesting talking about the name and likeness rights. How Jordan made the deal with Nike to get a percentage of the shoe, and how that just steamrolled into the empire that became the Jordan brand, and how a lot of these players are now getting the money in college that Jordan never got. It's an interesting. Rob, you definitely got to see this movie. It's very well done. Matt Damon steals the movie. I think he really stole the movie. I mean, Ben Affleck was good, but Matt Damon playing Sonny Vaccaro is phenomenal in this movie. And it definitely it transfers to what's going on now in college sports because of the name and likeness rights, that the kids are getting money where they got nothing in college and had to make these big shoe deals to get their money when they came out of college. It's a really interesting connection between what happened then and what happened now. So definitely go see it. Tony, did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was great.
Cool.
But yeah,
definitely plan to.
All right, awesome.
All right, so we'll stay in the college world. Because, and I know I've talked about this on this show, I've talked about it with you, Yoel, and I've talked about it on Big Talk before. But obviously, if you paid attention to college world news, USC and UCLA announced last year that they were going to be coming to the Big Ten in 2024. Well, that leaves the Pac-12, technically now the Pac-10, with 10 teams, and there has supposedly been a scramble for them to try to find comparable talent to bring in to supplement losing USC and UCLA. I know San Diego State has been one that's mentioned, which especially with the men's basketball team competing for a national title here of late, that kind of solidifies to me San Diego State potentially deserving a spot in the Pac-12. Same with their football program. Their football program has been decent the last few years. Boise State on the football side has been pretty decent the last few years. But there are a few schools that still want to potentially leave the Pac-10 for broader waters. We've heard that Washington and Oregon have flirted coming into the Big Ten, mainly because of the media rights deal and how much money each school is going to get as a result of that. There are 4 corner schools, though, that have kind of made a rumbling. Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah have all made rumblings that they would potentially jump ship to the Big 12. Now, Colorado obviously came from the Big 12. They left that in 2011, if I remember correctly, to come into the Pac-12. Now, of course, Deion Sanders also transferred to be the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes as well. Rob, I'll ask you first. What's your thought? Do you think if something like this happens, it truly is the end of the Pac-12 and we move from a Power 5 to a Power 4 conference and really a Group 6 and or the Pac-12 kind of ceases to exist and they just get absorbed into the Mountain West Conference?
I think I could see an absorption. I mean, if they start losing revenue over that way, I mean, because everybody's over here, then they might, like you said, just get absorbed into there. Now, where's Jackson at? Do you think that's why Prime made that move or is trying to make that move to play them?
What do you mean? Oh, Jackson State. They are in the
They're in the
SWAC.
SWAC, I think.
Yeah, the Southwestern American Conference. I think that's what it's called. The SWAC. They're a Group 5 school, I believe, or an FBS school. Yeah, so they
wouldn't be playing them.
Yeah, there's not really a dog in that fight, at least in that regard.
Because that'd be quite a fun match to watch,
right? I think honestly for Prime, it was more of he brought an HBCU back to relevance, competing for their division and their conference title and whatnot. And then, of course, there was a lot of, will you face somebody big like Alabama? And I think Prime handled it probably better than most other coaches would. Of you see the guys that I have, I'm confident in my guys. I support them 110%, but I also have to look at how many great guys do I have versus what Alabama has. Like, you have to give me 2 or 3 more years before I could say, okay, we're competitive enough. We'll at least keep it close. This won't just be a morale beatdown where, Jackson State gets a ton of money because they got, the crap kicked out of them by Bama. So to me, for him to go to Colorado, a previously pretty prestigious, football school, and try to bring them back to relevancy in, at least at the moment, still a Power 5 conference, to me kind of says that he wants to elevate his game of coaching, and I don't want to say taken more seriously, but I guess looked at a little bit more respectively because you're moving up in the coaching world essentially.
I definitely would like to see Oregon go where there's a little more coverage. I think it'd be nice seeing that. They usually have some pretty fun games to watch, have some decent talent coming out, which I'm really hoping Marcus Mariota gets a brighter future, because I mean, I loved watching him in Oregon, but I would like to see them bounce out and get to where we can watch them a little more.
Yeah. What's your thoughts? Because to me, here's what also kind of worries me, and what makes me think the Pac-12 will go away is, ever since this has happened, we've heard the rumblings of schools they might potentially get, but what we really haven't heard? We haven't heard them in any type of negotiations with ESPN, Fox, CBS, NBC, none of them as far as a new media rights deal.
Right.
And it's not one, I'm not saying you have to rush into it. You can take your time, but we're also drawing closer and closer to, your time's almost up. And for some of these schools, they probably want the security of, hey, are we gonna get money for this or not?
Right.
Like, do you?
Well, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's all comes down to money. For years, we've been talking about it. All comes down to money. That's why Oklahoma and Texas are moving to the SEC, because it all comes down to money, and it all comes down to football money. Because if you look at some of the basketball matchups. You know, some of the schools move for football reasons. It's like, oh, our basketball team will just come with us. You know, take you know, certain schools that moved. You know, when the original Big East broke up, and some of those schools moved to the SEC. You know, I mean not the SEC, the ACC.
ACC.
You know, it's for football reasons. You know, the Big 12 is obviously going through a lot of transition with OU and Texas leaving after this year. But remember that they are getting 4 schools this year. They're getting BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston. Now, are those names to be like yippee over? You know, maybe. I mean, Cincinnati and UCF both made, you know, the BC. No, I was gonna say BCS.
College.
I'm dating about the college football playoff. You know,
There you go.
there you go. Houston's had a good, you know, has had a pretty good run of seasons. BYU, you know, once in a while they get that magic quarterback, a la Steve Young, Ty Detmer. You know, yeah, I'm really dating myself with these '80s references tonight. But you know, so it's interesting with the Big 12. It's definitely, you know, trying to say, okay, we need to rebuild our conference band. Let's go after these corner schools. You know, why Colorado ever left the Big 12 to go to the Pac-12? Probably because of money, but they haven't really been that competitive. I think they'll be much more competitive back into the Big 12. You know, Nebraska has been nothing since they left the Big 12 and gone to the Big 10. You know, they've been kind of, you know, treading water over there. Utah came from the Mountain West before they went to the Pac-12. If that's correct. All right, so
Correct.
I could see them fitting in the Big 12. Arizona and Arizona State, I don't see, besides money, I don't see why they're moving. But I think because of UCLA and USC obviously run that conference, as we've seen. So they're leaving for the Big 10. So now the other schools are saying, well, you know, hey, the big money blue blood schools of our conference are leaving. What's going to come of our conference? Everybody's scrambling for position. Everybody's scrambling, saying, all right, the Big 12 has a deal with ESPN and also with Fox. You know, they sometimes the noon game, you know, is either on Fox or ESPN. Oklahoma, Texas is always either on Fox or ESPN, depending on the year, or ABC. So they're all scrambling for that TV money. What's going to come of the Pac-12? You know, as it says in the bottom of the screen, end of the Pac-12. I don't know if it's going to be the end of the Pac-12, because enough schools that are, you know, not in the Power 5 are like, well, hey, we can now join a major conference. Schools like a San Diego State, you know, getting to an NCAA tournament final, that's definitely helped them as far as their West Coast, you know, cachet. They can move into the Pac-12. There's rumors of that. You know, what's it called? There's some of these some of these Mountain West schools that could maybe be absorbed into the Big 12 and kind of form a new Western Conference. You know, schools like Cal and Stanford are you know, more educational than sports. You know, they're sports schools, but they're prided more on their education. So, but they still need the money, obviously, to support their sports teams. You know, that type of thing. Oregon State, you know, Washington State. You know, what's going to happen with those schools? Those schools are just so out of the way that for them to appeal to a Big 12 audience, I just don't see, you know. Or Oregon's always been a good school, fun program to watch, but sectionally, I just, you know, I mean, it's going to be hard enough watching the California schools playing in a Big 10, playing at Michigan State and Michigan, you know. But, you know, for those schools to go from, you know, Portland, Oregon to Michigan, it just, I don't know. It just sectionally for me doesn't make sense. So I don't think it's the end of the Pac-12, but I definitely think in the next 3 to 4 years, you might actually, and we've talked about this, actually might see that conference absorbed into like maybe 4 mega conferences, you know, which we've talked about the possibility of that as well. You know, ACC, SEC, Big 10, and then that Big 12 being renamed into just like, you know, the Big 12 west of the Mississippi, you know, something like that,
Right.
that type of thing. It's interesting how the money is moving college sports more and more, and how college sports has now become not big business, huge business.
Yeah, very big. And I will say too, to your point of maybe some of these Group 5 schools trying to come in and save it, I guess to me the other big thing would be, what would your quality of schools type be? Because I'll be honest, you know, there's some Group 5 schools I kind of look at and I'm like, like there's a reason why you're Group 5. Like historically they probably have a lot to them, and it's nothing to downplay them. They're great schools. They're still Division I football. There's always other bottom tiers, but to me, I don't know if they could supplement enough of, like we talked about with Blue Bloods. Like, how do you really replace the history of USC and everything that USC was able to do football wise? You look at UCLA, both football and basketball wise. How do they replace that, and who do they replace that with? Now, I will say for marketing, some of the schools that I had even thrown out of San Diego State, you can still kind of recapture some of those, Southern California kids to keep them in the conference. I think UNLV, even though football and basketball wise, UNLV isn't anything that I would really get excited about seeing, you would be tapping into the last big TV market potential as far as being the only conference, at least Power 5 conference, to be in Las Vegas, to be able to, hopefully capture some of that magic. But I mean, yeah, to me, I'm a little worried. I think that they'll probably dissolve, just because of, losing a lot of those names. There's been rumors that Stanford would potentially jump to the Big Ten as well, just because Notre Dame would want to keep that rivalry. Academically, they're still one of the best schools. Cal, I think, was potentially thrown in there. That was actually a hang up for the California Board of Regents to even let UCLA come into the Big Ten.
State school,
because it's a state school, and they wanted to keep that rivalry. The biggest thing, California wanted to keep the cash cow, still flowing in because of that. And then I had even heard rumors, but I haven't seen anything on it since, that if Oregon and Washington leaves, that the Oregon State and Washington State would want to potentially come with them, because I believe it was Washington, and it might have been Oregon as well. Their mayor said that, hey, they have to keep these schools because we want to keep the interstate rivalry, which may or may not happen.
Yeah, the Apple Cup, and I forget what the other one is called with Washington, with Oregon and Oregon State. I know Apple is the Washington one. And then this all leads to the big question. Well, what does Notre Dame do? Yes, they've got that sweet TV deal, but do they stay independent? Do they finally go full head into the ACC, or maybe even them join the Big Ten? Getting those Michigan State matchups, Ohio State matchups every year.
Love that.
Yeah,
I know. Well, you're a Michigan State guy, right, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
the only rivalry I care about is the Lumberjack. But, beating Ohio State. I don't like Ohio State.
What's the? I'm not familiar with the Lumberjack rivalry.
Or do you mean Paul Bunyan?
Or Paul Bunyan. Paul Bunyan is what I meant. Yep.
Which one is that?
That's the Michigan
versus Michigan
State.
Oh, that's what they call that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Paul Bunyan Trophy.
Oh, I didn't know. I learned something.
I don't know if there's a cup for Ohio State, but
there's not. I don't think Ohio State has one for any. Like, even against Michigan, it's just the big game. Like, they don't have a cup or a trophy or anything. It's just the big game.
I want to ask Rob something. So, as a Michigan State person, Ohio State, Michigan, obviously you hate both schools, but who do you rather see win?
Out of Ohio State and Michigan?
Yeah, like when they play.
I tend to just kind of shut the TV off and creep out of the room.
I say,
but honestly, I was just going to say, I do respect Ohio State, though, because they produce a lot of talent. I mean, there's a lot of cats drafted from them year after year after year.
Yes. And Rob, I know I told you I'm a pretty big Michigan State fan. That I will say, I root more for Ohio State winning than I do Michigan. And kind of what really solidified that was this past game with Michigan State and Michigan, the whole incident in the tunnel thing. And Michigan's like, oh, we're the victims. No, you were not the victims. Y'all instigated this. You've had issues with that tunnel forever. And Michigan State just got not only a punch in the face, but kids are getting federal charges against them for some of this crap. And I'm like, no, Michigan, take the L to Ohio State every year. Like, lose Michigan State, lose to Ohio State. No.
My oldest friend for over 40 years is a Michigan alumni, so I kind of root for him every year just because he's he's my oldest and dearest friend, so I kind of have to.
I do like Tom Brady too. I mean, I'm kind of happy that he came from Michigan. It's kind of cool.
I know for as much as the, at least outside of the Big Ten, hate as Big Ten quarterbacks get, especially from like the SEC, the fact that the goat of the NFL is a Big Ten quarterback is kind of one of those. It's like, yeah, that's kind of awesome that the SEC is like, we're the best conference, we have the best players, we have all of this. Well, Tom Brady has 7
might be
Super Bowls.
100 some. I
Right.
think, what was he, 180 in the draft, or what?
199.
No, don't go that high. 199.
Yeah. But Yoel, to answer your question about Notre Dame, Sam and I kind of talked about this, and this because I went back and looked at a little bit of the history of what happened with Notre Dame, the Big Ten, and why they decided to go more the ACC. It was because when Notre Dame, had talked about potentially, playing with a conference, at least, especially in like the basketball tournaments and whatnot, they wanted to come to the Big Ten, but the Big Ten said, well, you can't just do it for basketball. We want you to do all of your sports, which Notre Dame has hockey in the Big Ten currently. But obviously basketball and football, they primarily play an ACC game. I said, for me, if I was the Big Ten, I would have gone ahead and taken the deal, because at least kind of keep your foot in the door, because that way you've at least got good graces of that relationship. There's familiarity. That's honestly what I would still offer Notre Dame to this day. I would say, hey, the Big Ten also has a deal with NBC for the late night games. That's your guys' bread and butter baby. Here's what we want to do. We will give you, join the Big Ten. We'll still give you a majority of your nighttime primetime games, but we'll ask if you face somebody like Michigan State, if you face somebody like Ohio State, and we want to move it to a primetime spot for, two of your games out of your schedule, you go for it. Everything else will leave up to you, though. You pick the rest of it, and you can double dip. At least until Notre Dame, they kind of mend the wounds. They kind of, feel a little bit better, and then, slowly transition and integrate them more into kind of having a little bit more control over that schedule.
Yeah, but if you and you're absolutely, the point is absolutely right. But if you look at the ACC football matchups in general, they're much easier than Big Ten matchups in football. So obviously, I think that's why they went that course. Basketball wise, they could probably hang in either conference. But I think because of football rules all, they say, well, look, Clemson's the powerhouse, but all these other schools we could probably beat up on, which sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Notre Dame is not exactly the powerhouse they used to be. Part of it is, their academic requirements have gotten harder over the years, so it definitely is much harder. They can get some of these blue chippers just can't make the grades, so they just can't play ball for them. But it's going to be interesting, because how many times you want to see Notre Dame and Rice or Notre Dame and Army on TV, and NBC, even though they've got a lot of money involved, and then I'm sure they're like, well, we're not getting the ratings we used to, so they're probably going to need to rethink that deal once this deal is over, for sure.
Yeah. And that's honestly where I think if I'm Notre Dame, I take it. Because I mean, even if you're not good, you're one of those big nationally recognized college brands. Like, you versus Ohio State is going to get you money. You versus Michigan State is going to get you money. Like, to me, I personally would see it.
Yeah,
but
the one game, and you and I talked about this, is the Spartan matchup of USC and Michigan State. I can't wait to see that almost every year.
That's going to be fun.
That's going to be fun.
I'm telling you,
it needs a lot of fun.
It needs to be like the Shield Cup or Battle for the Shield, like the Sword and Shield, something like Trojan and Spartan. Like, that would be perfect.
Yeah. I am Sparta.
Literally. Well, it kind of goes back to, I don't know if you guys ever watched the movie Troy, but I mean, you think about it, Trojans are the only ones that held off the entire Greek army, including the Spartans. It's like, I mean, y'all could play off of that. That's like millions of dollars just sitting out there, man.
Yep. We'll see what happens.
History angle. It's nice.
That's going to be fun to watch.
Right. Well, gents, it has been fun. I've had a blast. Yoel, hopefully you've had a blast.
Yes.
Rob, appreciate you coming on. Hopefully you had a blast for the first show. We loved having you on. Hopefully you'll join us again. Rob, can anybody find you? Do you do your own podcast, or is there anybody on social media they can follow you on podcasts that you do? It doesn't have to be sports related. It can be any podcast that you do.
So we have the Brain Soda podcast that is on all platforms. Actually, it's on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon. We also have a Facebook page for that, where it's just me and a couple friends, where we talk some history, some science, some pop culture, current topics in the world, different things like that. So it's more of a learning thing, clean. It's nice. So if you want to check us out.
The Brain Soda Podcast. All right. I'm subscribing to it right now. There we go. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Google Podcast. It's on my list.
Awesome. And Big Dog, where can they find you as always?
You could find me on Instagram, just Yoel Hyman Music. I'm a professional musician. I gig all over the place, mostly in South Florida, but this summer I'll probably be on the road a little bit with the Land Sharks, doing some shows around the country. So you never know. I do get up to Michigan sometimes, Rob, to like we did like a show in Ludington last year, up on the water, up on the lake last year, a couple summer shows. So that was fun. So
beautiful.
You never know. I might be doing a show in El Paso at the end of June, so that should be fun. And but I've just got a lot of stuff here in Florida right now, so I'm very blessed, knock on wood, compared to where we were, compared to where we are now. Loving it. So yeah, just check out my music page and see what I'm all about.
Yeah. So I was actually born in Florida, down there in Fort Myers.
I'm kidding.
Right? Well, that's why I'm up here now.
Where about?
Fort Myers.
Okay, yeah, I play in Fort Myers sometimes. Yeah, I like it out there. It's nice. They're
nice.
Still recovering from the hurricane. From the beach is still a wreck out there.
I got some siblings, half siblings down there that kind of got cooked up in that mess. So prayers to everybody out there.
Yeah, it's definitely they got a long way to go out there. So hopefully, hopefully I'll do some stuff.
For sure. You can also catch Yoel on Bring It. Hopefully that will come back this fall, this football season. If scheduling and everything like that works out for Yoel, he'll be able to
that's the goal,
bring that back this coming year.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be fantastic. And if you want to follow me, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok at Inside the Hoosier Mind. Same thing as Rob. You can find me on just about anywhere you listen to podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon, all of them. Hope everybody enjoys. You can also catch us always here on ASAP. We're on a variety of different shows. You'll find us just about everywhere. But hope all of y'all enjoyed watching, and we will see y'all later. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you.